March 4th, 1968. A memo moves through a federal system like a quiet blade, almost silently clean, typed, and meant to change people without anyone noticing. It doesn't read like an investigation. It reads like management. Cold, efficient goals, bullet points, outcomes. Not catch a criminal, but reshape the field. Goal 1 is simple: prevent a coalition. Because if separate voices become one chorus, power starts to move together, fast. Then the line that sounds like a thriller: prevent the rise of a messiah, someone who could unify and electrify a movement one day. One goal is to reduce respectability not by debating ideas, but by staining the person until trust collapses on its own, quietly, gradually. Psychological war doesn't need a spotlight. It spreads through whispers, messages, rumors, small tips that feel organic everywhere, overnight. The scariest objective isn't arrest. It's suspicion turning allies into question marks, until every friendship feels like a risk, all around. And the tone is the horror. A manager's checklist for human behavior measured, tidy, and designed to break trust at scale, without mercy. This isn't about one target. It's about the social field, the invisible, everywhere unseen web of trust, meetings, friendships, and momentum. If you can get inside the room physically or psychologically, you don't need to stop the meeting. You just need to bend it slightly. First, one cheap tool can do expensive damage. An anonymous message just believable enough to plant a story that spreads by itself, like wildfire. When you can steer perception, you don't need force. The public becomes the pressure pushing people apart without knowing why at all. The language stays calm. That's the trick. Violence isn't in the verbs, it's in the goal. Make people stop believing each other ever again. Coalitions are bridges. If you keep the bridge under suspicion, people don't cross. They turn around before unity can form in time. In every tense room, there's a fear. Who's the mouthpiece? You don't even need certainty. Only the possibility, lingering doubt. The target isn't just leaders, it's trust itself. Because when trust breaks, every group becomes smaller than it should be, altogether. On paper, one goal sounds clean: prevent violence. But the method isn't safety. It's pressure, misdirection, and ignition control off stage, quietly. Another objective is long range. Stop growth before it becomes unstoppable. You don't fight a forest, you cut the sapling early on. The irony is baked in. The more direct the wording, the more explosive it becomes when the files finally surface years later. The horror is how normal it looks. A tidy process for untidy outcomes, turning society into a system you can optimize on paper. The memo isn't about grabbing someone. It's about neutralizing them at a distance, so the crowd steps back on its own, quietly, remotely. If unity is a circle, the tactic is a fold, split the center, and watch every argument become louder than the mission so quickly. The cleanest sabotage is a conflict you didn't start two sides reading two truths, both convinced the other betrayed them from within. It's just paper, but in the wrong hands, paper behaves like a weapon, quiet, deniable, and built to outlast the moment for years. The memo uses a corporate word, goals. That's what makes it chilling. A program measuring human lives like metrics on spreadsheets. Another unspoken logic: no martyrs. Because a single death can turn fear into devotion and devotion into movement so fast. Visibility is oxygen. The strategy is to block the spotlight so leadership fades without a confrontation in public. When trust is hard to break, labels do the work. Call someone a threat and the public stops asking what's true right away. When distrust takes root, every call becomes a test. Is my friend still my friend, or an unseen channel to someone else these days? Control the story, and you control the temperature. You don't have to win the argument. Just decide what people hear first each morning. Respectability is a lever. Add a few suggestions, and suddenly a leader's name feels unsafe to say out loud to anyone. Isolation is the endgame. If you can make a person look alone, even allies will hesitate to stand beside them in daylight. The real damage doesn't happen during the meeting. It happens after, when people whisper, replay, and wonder who's playing who all night. A rumor works best when it's urgent right now, before tomorrow. Panic makes people act before they can verify the facts. When people believe they're being watched, they change. Even a normal handshake starts to feel like evidence, instantly, everywhere. You don't have to change who someone is. Just fracture the image people hold of them, and the movement loses shape in public. Respectability is a mask people trust. The tactic is to scratch it, so the public sees suspicion where it used to see stability every time. Build someone up, then pull the light away. A hero without oxygen becomes a liability, easy to isolate, easy to erase in silence. A case ends when the court ends, but a program like this doesn't sleep. Files keep growing, strategies keep evolving all year. It's a manager's mindset. Turn humans into boxes and arrows. If you can chart it, you can justify it so neatly. The promise is bureaucratic. We can manage this. And once something becomes manageable, it becomes easier to justify again and again forever after. Trust falls like dominoes. You don't need to push every piece just the right one, at the right time to start. In this world, there are always two conversations, the one you think you're having, and the one being recorded in someone else's room right now. Unity is treated like a threat, because once people coordinate, history starts moving faster than permission for once. In a system like this, you become a line item. A name on a list, easy to track, easy to frame, hard to escape for life. You don't have to destroy someone. You find the pressure points, jobs, families, reputations, and press, until the shape changes at last. Sometimes it's framed as a helpful tip, a phone call that sounds concerned but delivers a seed of doubt that keeps growing inside you. And then, silence becomes evidence. If someone doesn't answer, the story fills the gap, usually in the worst possible way so easily. You don't always see the switch flip. You feel it when a room's temperature changes and everyone suddenly measures every word they say. The system loves deniability. If there's no signature, no witness, no headline, then nothing happened, even when everything changes in reality. Imagine your movement under glass, observed, cataloged, and distorted by reflections, until even you can't tell what's real anymore today. In public, it's order. In private, it's a knife, made of paperwork, quiet enough to use, clean enough to deny every time. First, they break the mirror. If you can't recognize your allies, you start suspecting everyone, including yourself inward too. A movement's strength, its leaders, its unity, gets reframed as a liability. The goal is to make power look dangerous to outsiders. A frame doesn't need the full picture. It only needs a corner enough to suggest a story your brain completes for free at once. The target isn't just people. It's momentum. Slow the wheel enough, and the movement stops itself later, off camera, on purpose. When people become a diagram, it's easy to manipulate them. Add a line, remove a line, and reality reorganizes quietly, overnight again. One tactic is cost. Make participation feel expensive: jobs, rent, family stability, until courage turns into calculation every month. Isolation has a sound. It's the phone that stops ringing, because everyone is afraid of what contact might imply to others. The scariest threats aren't shouted. They're typed: perfect margins, neutral tone, and a plan to make society distrust itself for decades. The plan doesn't need to stop you outright. It just adds friction, so every step costs more energy than it should every day. Suspicion creates a loop. You guard your words. People feel the distance. Then they suspect you back. The loop runs itself at scale. When you can't stop the message, you cut the messenger. Change what arrives, and people blame each other for the lie so quickly. This is fear, administered like paperwork delivered in envelopes, filed in drawers, and felt in the pauses between people everywhere, daily. The most unsettling part is how it reads like logistics, timelines, steps, outcomes, like you can reorganize a community the way you ship a package to anywhere. When trust erodes, the loudest thing is the silence between allies, the sentence that never gets spoken because it feels unsafe to say. Sometimes the goal is to trigger the wrong reaction so the public only remembers the snap, not what caused the tension in hindsight. That's how it works. The day looks normal, and under the normal, the pressure keeps building quietly, steadily, all along. Nothing explodes at once. The damage is a slow drain, small losses of trust, day after day, until the whole thing feels empty inside out. In the memo's logic, evidence doesn't need proof. It only needs a shape, something the mind can fear and fill in by itself. The most efficient barrier is social. When the crowd becomes a wall, no badge is needed. People police each other with distance on sight. It reads like a thriller, but it's real administration. A cold genre where the villain is process and the weapon is paperwork everywhere today. Some lines echo for decades because they say the quiet part out loud. Stop unity, stop leadership, stop momentum at once. On paper, it's strategy. In life, it's sleep lost, friendships strained, and families carrying weight they never agreed to hold for years. In this kind of war, words are tools. Forms and envelopes do what guns don't: quiet damage, with no loud moment to resist at all. And then years later, the files surface. What was written to be hidden becomes a spotlight aimed back at the system, suddenly bright. The black bars hide details, but they also confirm something else. Someone wrote this down, filed it, and expected it to stay buried forever, unseen. The memo's real target isn't one person. It's coordination, the moment strangers decide to trust each other enough to act together, openly. That's the nightmare. A process that doesn't need hatred to function, only routine. A system that writes itself, one page at a time, without pause. When people finally read the method, the spell breaks a little. Secrecy works best when it feels like rumor, not record, to everyone. Paper was meant to disappear. But once it exists, it can survive the moment, waiting years to speak louder than anyone intended so clearly. Psychological warfare doesn't need dramatic language. It works best in plain style when harm is described, like procedure on purpose. This is the experiment. Pull people apart until the fibers show. Not one big break, just constant tension everywhere, always. The warning isn't just what it says, it's how it says it calmly, efficiently, like this kind of control is normal to them. The battlefield isn't a street corner. It's between people, where trust forms, where doubt spreads, where unity either happens or doesn't. Right here. This kind of document doesn't order storms. It changes the weather so people feel colder with each other, even on a normal day, for weeks. And then it leaks into history. The plan meant for back rooms ends up in public hands, where the methods can finally be named out loud. The lesson is brutal. The most dangerous plans can look like ordinary checklists, simple steps designed to break trust quietly at scale. Read between the black bars. Even when names vanish, the intent stays visible: how to make trust collapse without firing a shot, in silence. The scariest part isn't the page. It's the afterimage, what a checklist like this leaves behind in a society's muscles. Hesitation, distance, silence, for years.